Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys back to the Boombox Guru channel. I'm your host, LB. So today's video, I'm really excited about this video. We're doing an album review on one of my favorite heavy metal albums of all time, and we're going to be talking about Metallica's Ride the Lightning. So just before I begin and we get into the review, I wanted to show you, this is the CD. This is my CD version right here. Excuse the crack right there on the case. I don't know where that came from. This is the CD version, and I also have the vinyl version of this album as well. I think, yeah, this is the only Metallica album I have on vinyl, actually. I'll show you guys the back cover as well. And this is like a reissue. This came out on the band's Blackened label. This is not like an original pressing, but it does stay true to the original pressing as well. But this is my favorite Metallica album of all time. This album right here, and this is the second album, their sophomore effort, their follow up to the great debut, which was Kill 'Em All. And the difference between the two of these records, as I would say, is that Kill 'Em All, that was the introduction of Metallica. It showed a band, a young, up and coming hungry band that definitely wanted to make their mark. Fast, up tempo, punk inspired riffs and so forth, man. It was the record that really jump started the thrash metal movement. But with Ride the Lightning, this is the record where I always have said that Metallica really started to come into their own. This is the album where they really developed their sound that they would later become famous for. And it showed a very musical growth in their sound. And I thought that was interesting that these records came out within a year of each other, but Ride the Lightning just showed so much growth within that year. And Cliff Burton had a lot to do with that because he knew a lot about music theory, and he basically showed the other members of the band different techniques that really helped to enhance their songwriting and their musicianship, and it all shows on this album. Ride the Lightning to me is the record that really set the stage for the remainder of Metallica's career in the 1980s, especially in this golden era of thrash metal. I mean, this record, it was so much diversity. It was so much like dynamics to the sound. I mean, they added so many different elements to it that really just took it to the next level. And they really showed that they were a force to be reckoned with. And this was also the last album that featured any songwriting contributions from former lead guitarist Dave Mustaine. As most of you know, he was infamously kicked out of the band right before they started recording Kill 'Em All. But the other members, of course, he was replaced by Kirk Hammett. Kirk Hammett was brought in, but they used a lot of the music that he wrote while he was still in the band. They did give him songwriting credits on those songs and so forth, but that was a point of a lot of strong contention with Dave. And of course, he would later go on to form Megadeth. But this would be the last album that they allegedly used a lot of his songwriting contributions. Although Dave has claimed that there was stuff on Master of Puppets that was his as well. That was his ideas and so forth. But yeah, Ride the Lightning just showed a huge growth in the band. Kill 'Em All, most of that music was about metal. It was about the metal community and so forth. But on Ride the Lightning, man, even in the subject matter, the band shows a lot of musical growth, man. They're tackling like real subjects, man. They're tackling things such as the criminal justice system. There's a lot of talk about war on this album. They even take a lot of their subject matter from literary adaptations, and just an all around great work, man. It's a phenomenal record, and it's why it's my favorite one of all time, particularly when it comes to Metallica. So let's get into some of the songs. I figured I would go into a lot of the songs on here and discuss them because it's worth that, man. I mean, there's only 8 songs on this album. This was the days where a full-length album was like from 8 to 10 songs, maybe you would get 11 or 12, but most of the time it was like 8 songs So let's get into some of these songs. The first song, the song that kicks off that album is "Fight Fire with Fire," and this is particularly one of my favorites on the record. I really like how the album starts. Excuse me. I really like how the song starts off with this very acoustic, soft instrumental. And I kind of wonder when this record came out in '84. I wonder if a lot of people when they put this on, if they got a little bit scared, if they was like, oh man, the band's changed. I wonder if that happened. But the intro doesn't last very long, man. I mean, I thought it was cool, but then it breaks right into like that heavy riff, and then those breakneck speed thrash metal tempos just come in. And "Fight Fire with Fire," this song is actually about the whole eye for an eye philosophy. Well, maybe not philosophy, but it's all about that whole eye for an eye type thing. It's a bit of like a social critique of that, but it's also about war. It talks about like an impending apocalypse caused by nuclear warfare and the bloodshed and the after effects of that. So, yeah, right off the bat, man, you're getting different content from Metallica with this one, man. This is a serious subject. This was the 1980s. I guess I'm thinking the Cold War was still going on, where everybody thought that there was going to be like a nuclear holocaust that was going to take place or whatever. So it was very in line with what was happening during this time in the early 1980s, man. But a great song, a great album opener, in my opinion. And yeah, just one of my favorites, man. I really like James Hetfield's vocal approach. And you know what? Let me backtrack for a minute. I forgot to mention that when they actually went in to record "Ride the Lightning," James Hetfield didn't want to sing lead vocals. He wasn't very confident in his ability as a vocalist, and they was actually trying to get John Bush of Armored Saint to join the band and sing vocals, but Armored Saint was still like he was busy with Armored Saint. I mean, they probably had just dropped March of the Saint at that time, so he was mainly focused on that. But I'm glad that didn't happen, because I think James Hetfield was the right vocalist for Metallica. He may not be the greatest vocalist, but he does great for what Metallica does. And I think the album, I don't think this album would have the same impact if he hadn't been the one singing. But he does a great job at balancing like the clean with the more harsher, aggressive vocals that he mainly used on Kill 'Em All. But yeah, Fight Fire with Fire is a great opening track on this album. Definitely sets the tone and the pace for the rest of the record. So let's get into the next track on here, "Ride the Lightning," which is the title song, the title song of the album. Really enjoy this record. I really enjoy this song too. This song is actually about, I think it takes its inspiration from the title is taken from, the title of the song and the album is taken from Stephen King's The Stand. I've never read that book, and I'm not sure if that's what this song is necessarily about. But this is a song where they tackle like criminal justice system. The song is sung from the perspective of a death row inmate who is about to be executed. So the lyrics are, these are his emotions. These are the thoughts that are running through his head. And judging by the content, he's actually an innocent person that was wrongfully accused and was put on death row. So the whole entire song is about, his last minutes, his moment before he's executed in the electric chair. And for the most part, "Ride the Lightning" it's a mid-tempo type track, but there are certain parts of the song where things kind of accelerate and the more thrash metal speed comes back in. I also like the parts where James Hetfield, he kind of conveys like this character's emotions, where he says, "Someone help me, oh please God help me, they're trying to take it all away, I don't want to die." Like James did a really good job at really like kind of exemplifying that emotion of what somebody probably would more than likely feel if they're about to be electrocuted, on the electric chair, especially if they're an innocent person and they're being wrongfully executed for something they didn't do. But it's a lot of great solos on here, man, especially during the breaks and the bridges, man, the instrumental breaks. So many amazing guitar solos on here, man. Kirk Hammett I mean, Kirk Hammett really nailed it. I think Ride the Lightning has some of Kirk Hammett's best guitar playing on here, and I actually think that this might have been a song. Let me look on Wikipedia right quick. Yeah, this is a song that has Dave Mustaine credited for writing. I believe the guitar solo parts were actually Dave Mustaine actually wrote those parts. So this is one of the songs where he actually has a songwriting credit, man. But Kirk Hammett nailed it, man. He really killed those guitar solos, man. And just an amazing song, man. Great, one of Metallica's greatest songs. I really like it. I like it sonically, but I really like it for the subject matter too, because I don't think a lot of thrash metal bands were really talking about this kind of stuff at this time. So again, here's another pioneering factor that goes into Metallica. I mean, I think they might have been the band that kind of brought that more social kind of political aspect to thrash metal that later bands would continue with. But yeah, really did Ride the Lightning, another one of my favorites on here. Honestly, I think majority of the album are my favorite songs. So let's get into the next song, For Whom the Bell Tolls. And this is another slower mid-pace song. There's no moments on this song where things like speed up. It kind of keeps that same mid-tempo throughout the entire track. And but I think it's one of the heaviest songs on here, man. Like, it's something about the riffs on here that they just really pack a major punch on this particular song. And the song's title it comes from a Ernest Hemingway novel of the same name, which is about modern warfare. And the book, I think, was written during the Spanish Civil War. But yeah, that's initially what this song is about. It's about modern warfare and the effects that it has on people, like the dishonorable aspect of it. But just a heavy song on here, man. I want to say something. There's an intro on here when the song opens where it's called a chromatic riff. There's a chromatic riff during the intro of the song. People mistakenly think that that's a guitar, but it's actually Cliff Burton's bass. It's actually his bass that's doing that chromatic riff during the intro of the song. He was known to like play his bass through distortion, through a wah-wah pedal. On the previous album, Kill 'Em All, there's an instrumental song on there called Anesthesia, which people mistakenly thought was a guitar solo, but it was actually a bass solo. Cliff was playing through that distortion through the wah-wah pedal. So in a sense, man, you could say that's like kind of like a small reference to that in some way. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. And most people watching the channel probably already know. They probably already know that, man. But yeah, this is another one of my favorites on here. I'm gonna be saying this a lot about these songs being my favorites, man. But they are. It's just so many great. It's just so many great tracks on here, man, that it's hard to not pick. It's hard to kind of pick your ultimate favorite one on here. There's just so many good songs on here, man. But awesome subject matter. Again, a prime example of Metallica taking a lot of their content, their subject matter from literary adaptations. This coming from a Ernest Hemingway book, and it also ties into like the war theme, because there's kind of like a theme of war that follows this record too. There's quite a few songs here that tackle the subject of war and so forth, man. All right, so let's get to the next song, which is Fade to Black. And this is actually the slowest song on the album. It's actually a power ballad, but when I say power ballad, it's not in the vein of what like maybe a 80s glam metal band would do. This isn't a love song, although technically Metallica would do that years later on the Black Album with Nothing Else Matters, but that's another review for another day. But Fade to Black, it's about a man who wants to commit suicide. Yeah, it's a very depressing song. It's sad. I read somewhere, and I don't know, maybe somebody actually it's here on Genius. So the inspiration behind this song, especially the lyrics, James Hetfield, he had a Marshall amplifier which his mother helped get him before she passed away. And when the band, I believe when the band was on tour for Kill 'Em All, their equipment got stolen, and that Marshall amplifier was stolen along with the rest of the equipment. So, the sentimental value behind that amp, being that it was, I believe it was one of the last things that James's mother helped to buy him before she passed away. I believe she passed away from cancer, and his mother, his mother will be a recurring theme in a lot of the songs throughout Metallica's years. But yeah, it put James in a depression, man. He felt hopeless. He felt bad. So that's why you have these lyrics that are very suicidal, for lack of better words. Like the first verse, it says, "Life, it seems, will fade away, drifting further every day, getting lost within myself. Nothing matters, no one else. I have lost the will to live, simply nothing more to give. There's nothing more for me, need the end to set me free." He's really feeling that way, and I like how the first half of the record, the first part of the album, the record. I keep saying the album. The first part of this song is it's mainly an acoustic. It's a very kind of like melancholy acoustic vibe. It's just acoustic guitars playing, and then James comes in with his clean vocal style, and he just sings these songs. And you know what? James did such a great job in really invoking the emotion that he was feeling. It really hits you. It really hits you. It does a great job at making you maybe empathize or sympathize with what he's feeling. He did a great job at really showcasing the pain that he's feeling because of this. So you really want to empathize with him for what he's going through. But there's a bridge, and then things kind of speed up slightly. Not thrash metal, but the guitars come in. Things get a little bit heavier. James kind of gets a little bit more aggressive with his approach by verse 2 and so forth. Well, not verse 2, but the bridge where he says, "No one but me can save myself, but it's too late. Now I can't think why I should even try. Yesterday seems as though it never existed. Death greets me warm. Now I will just say goodbye." Like, he gets a little bit more aggressive, but he still maintains that sort of melodic, clean singing through there. And there's a lot of like instrumental, like really awesome guitar solos on here, man. There's just a lot of passion in everything on here. I feel like the band was kind of like supporting him, mentally with this, man. I feel like they was right there with him. I think you really feel like a brotherhood with the band members on this song, because everybody's very passionate, from James's vocals to the guitars, the bass, to Lars's drumming on here. Everything is just very much in sync with like the emotion of the song and what it's about. And interesting enough, man, Fade to Black actually was a point of contention for a lot of fans when Ride the Lightning first came out. People were trying to say that Metallica sold out and so forth because they made a power ballad, but it was not even your stereotypical power ballad. This was a song where James was just feeling depressed about losing that amp that his mother gave him, and he's basically wearing his heart on his sleeve. That's what it was about, man. But I think Fade to Black is one of Metallica's greatest songs, and it's actually the song that really made this album become one of my favorites, because just listening to it numerous times, I just started to pick up on so much of the beauty of this particular track and all the like layers and dynamics of it. It's just such a great song, man, and the atmosphere of it is just awesome, man. I really dig it. It's one of my favorite Metallica songs of all time, man. I just really dig it so much. All right, so let's go to the track number 5, which is Trapped Under Ice, man. And this is another one of my favorites right here, Trapped Under Ice. Me and a friend who is also a coworker of mine, we talk about this song quite often, man, because we both consider like Ride the Lightning to be our favorite Metallica album and so forth. But we like to talk about Trapped Under Ice a lot. And we both agree that this is somewhat of an underrated Metallica song. Like, I never hear a lot of people talk about Trapped Under Ice, and I think it's one of the greatest songs on it. Definitely one of the heaviest, fastest, and most intense songs on the album, man. You know, just a thrash metal assault, just a thrash metal monster, man. But even though I enjoy the song sonically, it's really not musically why it's one of my favorites. It's really the subject matter, man. The song is about waking up in a cryogenic state, and if I'm not so sure where the inspiration behind this came. I don't know if it came from the Twilight Zone, because I believe there was an episode of the Twilight Zone, the old Twilight Zone, the black and white version, where they had people sleeping in cryogenic like state or whatever. You know, waking up in a cryogenic state, man. You're like frozen. You're basically frozen, and you're left into this like. You're frozen into this sleep. You're like kind of in suspended animation. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. You know, a lot of movies that focus on the future has things like that happen. Michael Jackson. There was a rumor that he was sleeping in a cryogenic chamber and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what this song is about. It's about someone who has been cryogenically frozen, and they wake up from their sleep and they find out that they can't escape the chamber. You know, they wake up before they were supposed to. They have a fully functional mind, but they realize that they're frozen and they can't do anything about it. They can't move. They're just stuck in that way, man. And it's really actually disturbing. It's really disturbing, man. I know it's one of my favorite songs, but yeah, it's pretty disturbing, man. And I don't know, man. For whatever reason, this song kind of gives me Edgar Allan Poe vibes. And I don't think Edgar Allan Poe ever even wrote any kind of short stories or tales similar to this. Maybe I don't even know if a cryogenic thing was even known back then during his time. But I don't know. To me, it just has that kind of influence to it, man. Like, this seems like something that Edgar Allan Poe would have written. You know, like somebody waking up in a frozen state and they can't do anything about it, man. But yeah, I really dig this song, man. It's a really good song. Like I said, it's one of the fastest on the album. Very intense. Lots of great riffage. Lot of good solos and so forth, man. James, his vocals, very aggressive on here. But I dig it, man. It's just a really good song on here. One of my all-time favorites on the record. All right, so then next song is Escape. Next song is Escape, and you know what? Definitely not my favorite on the album. Escape is the weakest song on this album. Considering all the other tracks on here, yeah, this is definitely the weakest. So here's a little story behind this song. Metallica hates this song. They hate this song, especially James Hetfield. They were actually forced to record this song. The record label wanted them to make a song because they wanted to release a single. They planned on using Escape to be a single. They wanted a song that was more radio friendly so they could get something on radio. So they did Escape. And for what I know, the song didn't even become a single. But this is probably the most like conventional song on the album. And what I mean by that is probably the most simple out of all the songs on here. Like, there's really no dynamics to it. There's really nothing interesting, man. To me, it's more like a straightforward 80s hard rocker. That's the way I describe it. And the subject matter is mainly about personal freedom and things of that nature, man. It's nothing all that spectacular. But I will say some positives about this song. It is catchy. So it may not be one of my favorites, but there are times where I find myself kind of humming the tune of the song or singing the chorus. So it does its job at being a catchy song. So if it had been a single, it might have did pretty good. But it's definitely the weakest on here. It's nowhere near on the same level as the other songs. I don't even know if Metallica ever performed this song live, but they cannot stand this track. They cannot stand this song, and I understand why, because the record company forced them to make it, and it wasn't even released as a single. It wasn't even released as a single. Maybe a promotional. I don't know, but far as I know, it didn't come out as a single. But sometimes I skip the song. But here lately, when I was going back listening to Ride the Lightning, preparing for this review, I didn't really feel the need to. I didn't really feel the need to skip it. It's definitely kind of a sore thumb on the record, because it definitely does not fit in line with the rest of the songs. That's for sure. You know, when this song comes on, you can tell it does not fit in line with the rest of them. But it is what it is, man. It's not a garbage song, but the best thing I can say about it is it's tolerable. You know, for me, there's some days where I can listen to it, and there's some days where I'd rather just skip it and go on to the next track. All right, so getting to the next song, and this is the last like song on here with vocals. It's Creeping Death. Creeping Death. And you know, if I had a top 10, like, well, I ain't gonna say top 10, but if I had like a top list of my all-time favorite Metallica songs, Creeping Death would be number one. There's no doubt about it. Creeping Death would be number one. I think this is one of Metallica's greatest songs. If not, this is their greatest song. Man, you know, it's hard for me to really get down and really describe everything from the musicianship, because I'm not a musician, man. But all I gotta say is that Creeping Death is epic. If you want to describe this song in one word, it's epic. And again, this song is based on the story of the first Passover from the book of Exodus. So this comes from the Bible. You know, Creeping Death says it here on Genius. It says it's a brutal retelling of the story of the angel of death. When the Pharaoh refused to release the Hebrew slaves, God sent an angel to take the lives of every firstborn unless the house was marked with blood. And the inspiration behind the song came from the band members watching the movie The Ten Commandments, and the title actually came from Cliff Burton. He made a comment when watching the movie saying something to like, man, that's like a creeping death. So that's where the title comes from. But man, this song is just so. This is just an outstanding song. Like, every time I listen to this song, I find something new to enjoy about it. Cause I keep picking up on new things within it that's just so awesome. Like, oh man, I didn't hear this before. Like, ooh, I didn't hear that the last time I listened to this song. Just a great, man. Like, the musicianship on here is like next level. Like, for me, if you want to know how great of a band Metallica is, or maybe in some cases you might say it used to be, but like I said, that's a conversation for another day. Creeping Death is one of the prime examples of that, man. That's the song you need to check out, cause man, they that song just sonically, man, it's just so unmatched. I mean, to me, it's really a foreshadowing of where the band would go later on. I feel like that it's very progressive in nature, a lot of ways, man. There's just so many different things. There's this eeriness and darkness, this very eerie atmosphere about the song that invokes every part of it. And then James, as a vocalist, man, he really brings the story to life. He really makes it hit you and so forth, man. And everybody plays their part so well on here, man, by just bringing everything to life, man. It just really hits you. But that's why I enjoy this song so much, man. Kirk Hammett, man, I think this album has one of his best guitar solos, man. At the end, his solo on there was just crazy. And let me look and see if no, Mustaine was not credited on this. He was actually only credited on 2 songs on Ride the Lightning. But man, that's just a killer song. I think I'm pretty sure Creeping Death is still a live staple. It should be if it's not. Now, whether Lars can still play the song or not, who knows? But just an amazing song, man. It's just one of my all-time favorites, man. And actually, I'm looking here on Genius. It says the guitar riff in the bridge was written by lead guitarist Kirk Hammett when he was only 16 years old, and was originally used in the Exodus song "Die by His Hand." So I thought that was pretty cool. It's worth mentioning that before Kirk Hammett joined Metallica, he was actually in the band Exodus. He was actually in that band. But I thought I read somewhere where there was another. Is was that you? No, that I'm sorry. I'm thinking about something else. But in regards, man, definitely one of Metallica's greatest songs. Personally, I think it is. Personally, I think "Creeping Death" is their greatest song, hands down. That's how I feel about it. I think that song is just unmatched in their catalog, man. It's just up there, man. That's like upper echelon of extreme metal for me, man. All right, so last we get to the last track, called "The Call of Cthulhu." Let's see. And it says here that Metallica's musical homage to H.P. Lovecraft's supernatural horror classic, "The Call of Cthulhu." They actually changed the spelling with a K so people could pronounce it better. Yeah, it says right here the alternate spelling comes from the writing of August Derleth, one of many offers to borrow some of Lovecraft's creations. And let's see, the collaboration of the very. Oh, now that's something different, man. But yeah, this is an instrumental. This is just an instrumental, and again, just like "Creeping Death," uh, this instrumental really is a foreshadowing of where the band would take their sound next. I think that those songs were really a foreshadowing of the more progressive approach that that they would take with the next record, Master of Puppets, man. But I'm not a musician, so I can't really get down to the nitty gritty and go into detail about this technique on the guitar, that style on the drums or whatever. I can't really get down to the nitty gritty of that because I'm not a musician. All I gotta say is that it's a great instrumental. It's one of the best instrumentals in Metallica's discography. Like I said, it's very progressive. To me, it's progressive. It's really showing where the band was going to take their sound with the next record, and I think that it is a demonstration of how they had grown as a band from Kill 'Em All. Because again, you're getting so many of those complex arrangements. You're getting so much of those dynamics within this song. Yeah, like it's almost like a different band. Like I kind of wonder when people heard "Ride the Lightning" back in '84. I wonder if they were scratching their heads, wondering if this is the same band that did "Kill 'Em All." Because there is such a huge growth in a lot of these songs, man. And "The Call of Cthulhu" is one of the best examples of that. I mean, they just really nailed it. They just really nailed it, man. With it, man. Everything is just so in sync with each other. Like they were really gelling with this song and this album in general, man. But but yeah, man, really digging one of Metallica's top instrumentals, man. But yeah, that's it, man. That's it. I went through all 8 songs on here. So that's the end of this album review, man. Like I said, man, "Ride the Lightning," yeah, my all-time favorite Metallica album. This album never gets old for me. Shoot, I would consider this to be a desert island record for me. Like if I had to pick like maybe a few albums to have on a desert island, "Ride the Lightning" would be in that bunch most certainly, man. But you know, Metallica really showed that they weren't just a one-trick pony. That they could do whatever they wanted to and still be great. And they also pushed the boundaries of what you could do with thrash metal, because they showed that thrash metal didn't always have to be speed for speed's sake. They showed that, hey, you can still slow things down, and be dynamic, be complex, and still be heavy and still be extreme. So again, Metallica, they were the leaders of the thrash metal movement of the 1980s. I mean, they were the ones that sparked that movement. They were the ones that sparked that golden era of thrash metal. So a lot of bands were looking at them like they were like following their lead, in my opinion. And I think that "Ride the Lightning" was a record that really it was one of those records that really kind of turned the tide, and it I think it kind of expanded upon thrash metal, and it showed that there was so much other boundaries. There was so many more other areas of this genre to reach, and there just wasn't one specific style that you could do with it, man. That you could slow down, you could be very like atmospheric, very dynamic. You could just add in all these different layers into this sound and still remain true to the genre and still be heavy in the stream, man. And that's what I think Ride the Lightning really represents. And it's one of the greatest. It's not just one of the greatest thrash metal records. It's not just one of the greatest heavy metal records. It's one of the greatest albums of all time, and it has definitely stood the test of time because this is a timeless record. I don't think this album is dated by any means. I think the subject matter on here is still relatable to today. But that's just my opinion, man. But really enjoy this record. Can never get enough of Ride the Lightning. Anytime I want to listen to Metallica, this is always the record that I go for, because it's just such a great record. This is a musical masterpiece. Great example of a musical masterpiece right here, man. But that's it for this album review. I had a lot of fun talking about this album. As you can tell, you could probably hear it in my tone, in my voice. I really enjoyed discussing it. Like I just have so much fun discussing my favorite albums. So if you enjoyed this album review, please do hit that thumbs up and give me a like. It does help with the channel. It does help get my videos out to a wider audience of people. So I would appreciate if you hit that thumbs up. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap that bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop new content. I also want to thank everybody that has subscribed to the channel, everybody that has been watching the videos, showing support, leaving comments, and so forth, man. I appreciate you all. And as always, I hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.